Horror VNs are such an interesting genre. They create a cool and creepy atmosphere, but without all the constant anxiety and rapid heart rate of more interactable horror games. A lot of them are also pretty fantastic, from the House and Fata Morgana to The Letter. Today, we're diving into a game from the people behind The Letter, which was a fantastic horror game with loads of animated renders and English voice acting. More of a religious take on horror in ways you may not expect. Let's dive right in. Here is my review of Saint Maker for the Nintendo Switch. This story is centered around Holly, a young girl being sent to a holy convent in the middle of the mountains as a sort of spiritual rehab with the nun Sister Adira and other young woman Gabriella. Holly is a very tell people what they want to hear kind of person and immediately clashes with her roommate. The story then follows Holly as she lives at the convent for several days and begins to hear and see things at night, suffering sleep paralysis and having the ugly, painful secrets of her own past slowly surface as her good girl persona cracks and breaks, much like the statues in the convent itself. This is a great story. It's really good at its character development, why Holly and Gabriella are both at the convent and showing that ghosts and spirits are not always the scariest part of a place or environment. But there are two things to consider here. First, this game delves into very heavy religious themes and how religion itself can be used to not uplift a family, but be used for manipulation and abuse. And by religion, I don't mean a made-up religion. I'm talking about the religions and faiths centered around the Christian God and Jesus Christ. The Bible, that religion. And many of this game's plot reveals concerning that are uncomfortable, sickening, and just horrific, showing just how far religion can push someone if they take it in an unnatural and unhealthy way. And even more so if they're in a position of power, even if that position of power is as simple as being a parent. The other hurdle is the way the game begins. It's a part of her character development, but Holly is very awkward when speaking with Gabby at the start. She is very, I'll only say what Sister Adira wants to hear and nothing else, like a good Christian girl. And her dialogue is a bit awkward for the first day or two of the game until she starts to crack and become the real Holly. Granted, it's fantastic writing, but it does feel a bit awkward at the start. Outside of that, I feel like the main downside of this game is that there isn't that much freedom of choice. You get loads of dialogue choices across the game, but none of them seem to really matter or have any weight to them. More on that later. When it comes to gameplay, this is a visual novel with lots of dialogue choices. As you play, you'll view and read the story as it plays out, frequently making choices to help Holly push through and react to everything going on, from a simple argument between Adira and Gabby or as intense as a potential ghost encounter. There isn't really anything different about the Switch version of this game. No touch controls, no extra content, everything's the same as it is on PC. Though it is worth noting that the Switch is the only console you can play this game on. It never got ported to PlayStation or Xbox. Now, playing the game is simple. No minigames like in The Letter, so you just listen to the well-done English voice acting and make dialogue choices from time to help characters react to the plot. And I say characters because unlike most VNs, you get segments with Holly as well as Sister Adira, where you can make dialogue choices for both of them rather than just the protagonist. But navigating all of this is easy to do. You have skip and auto options, though there is unfortunately no way to automatically resume the auto advance mode after making a dialogue choice. It'll always require you to manually re-enable auto after you get done with each choice. But speaking of choices, we should talk about them. As I said in the previous section, the dialogue choices don't really matter, and they do and don't at the same time. There is an extra scene for the ending if you gear most of your dialogue choices towards siding and agreeing with Gabby, but every single choice you have will lead to the same event in that scene. For example, at one point Holly is getting angry and wants to throw stones at a tree, leading to an unfortunate accident. You're given the choices of her indulging herself or just calming down and letting it go. But no matter what you choose, Holly will always get angry and throw the stones. Most of the choices actually don't change what happens in the scene. They'll change a bit of wording here and there, but the end result is always the same. It even gets to the point where you try to make Holly more assertive in an argument, but once you choose that option, she just stops herself with, "No, that isn't me." I find this to be both good and bad at the same time. From a visual novel perspective, dialogue choices are always there to let you branch to different outcomes of the same event, and you always getting the same event regardless of choice is a big downer. Though the story does try to explain this a bit later with a little jab towards the end of the game that makes you think and ponder it in a bit of a fourth wall way. Getting back to it though, this is a horror game, so how scary is it? I'll admit that most of the game isn't that scary. After all, the plot really pushes the idea that the real monsters of this story are not its paranormal entities, but normal people. Though there are some creepy jump scares built into it that will surely get a shock from you as they did with me. Now, let's dive into content and length. Saintmaker will take you around 7 hours to complete. There are achievements for making different dialogue choices, but the story will end the same way regardless, so you can view this as a 7 to 8 hour experience. Much shorter than the letter, but still a good length. That brings us to presentation, and like the letter before it, this game is beautiful. Every scene is moving artwork from the character renders to the actual backgrounds with different effects going on. It really brings the story to life. And with performance, I have no issues. Never had it crash or freeze on me. My only complaint was having to re-enable auto after a dialogue choice, but that's more of a built into the game mechanic thing than a performance thing. That's all I got for presentation, so let's go into battery life. Saintmaker gives the original and light models a battery range of 3 to 4 hours, while the V2 and OLED models get 6 to 7.5 hours. In conclusion, Saintmaker is a well-written tale about religion and the idea that the true monsters are not the ghosts or demons, but normal, regular people. Now on the downside, there is no way to keep auto advance on after dialogue choices, and the game's story can be a little awkward at the start. But it's religious to the extreme, horrific, disgusting, and sickening, just the way horror like this should be. Reviews to Go rates Saintmaker for the Nintendo Switch an 8.5 out of 10. If you have any comments or questions, feel free to leave them below. Thank you for watching, and have a great day.